I unmuted.
I can hear you, Jessica.
We're going to make sure that we can hear you before we move on, Jessica.
Okay.
There we are. Okay.
Okay. Jessica Smuin present.
Thank you, Carla.
Carla Merrill present.
And Jason, are you there yet? Okay, Jason said he'll be joining us remotely later, so we'll introduce him when he comes.
Greg Gordon present.
Lon Lot present.
And Troy Stout present. We'll start with a word of prayer. Jason is not here, so I can offer that prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the blessings that we enjoy as a community, and individually, we're grateful for the opportunity to live here and to enjoy the camaraderie of our neighbors and of our community. We're thankful for the freedoms that we enjoy. We ask you to bless us that we'll continue to enjoy and appreciate them on a daily basis. We're grateful for those who serve in the military and abroad. We ask you to bless them, that they will be safe. We're grateful for those who take care of us here in our police force and our firefighters and our paramedics. We ask you to bless them in all of their endeavors. We thank thee for the blessings that we enjoy and ask thee to help us to completely evaluate and fairly assess all of the issues before us tonight. Help us to exercise good judgment in favor of our community with the interests of our community members in mind. And these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And Pledge of Allegiance. Chief, would you mind leading us? Please repeat the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Brian. For our consent calendar tonight, any explanation you'd like to put out there, Shane?
Just a couple things. We had a long agenda, so we put a couple of resolutions up here. One being our annual interlocal agreement with the county for the bookmobile. That's I did notice that we need that. Budget. It used to be 13,200. It's like 13,500.
Hey guys, can you guys speak into your microphones?
Yes.
Is it on?
How's that? With it on, does it sound better?
So much better.
Okay, we'll try that. And then on the consolidated fee schedule revision, we're just adding a fee for streetlight connections in new developments, just to clarify how that is handled. And then on retaining walls, we're making some adjustments to how we handle plan reviews and things on them. And so there's a clarification in there. To apply for a building permit, that is $300. The others are just bond releases and payments. Oh, the new mower, that is an item that is in the budget. I think we had budgeted 15,000 and this mower is 11,580. So.
Okay. Any comments or discussion on the consent calendar? Jessica, do you have anything? And Carla?
No.
Lon?
I made a couple of grammatical changes in the minutes here.
Okay.
Nothing, thanks.
Okay, so we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as proposed.
Motion by Lon Lot. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Greg Gordon. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to add that I'm glad to see people in the audience tonight. This is awesome. We haven't had people sitting out there for over a year now. So thank you for coming out tonight to our adrenaline-filled discussion about the budget. So we'll move on to reports and presentation. I'm sorry, no, we won't. We'll move to public comment. So we have a 3-minute time limit for those of you who'd like to jump up and talk about anything that's not on our agenda. If it's on the agenda, then we'd ask you to wait until later in the meeting when that topic comes up, and I'd be happy to receive public input. So at this point, we'll open it up. If you please state your name and address when you come to the front. Yes, sir.
Hey, my name is Gary Laney, and it's nice to be here and actually before my time starts, hopefully. Nice to see the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer after living in California for 30 years. So it's interesting. I'm here because we moved here 2 years ago. My wife is Carla, Pack Fruit Farm fame. And we bought a house on 720 Ridge Drive, a busy road from the Palmas, house that was up on the hill with a unlandscaped front yard, which is 90% of the yard. It had been that way for 20 years. We bought it because we wanted to improve it. The neighborhood was interested in seeing us do that. So we started this landscape project the fall of 2019. COVID happened. I lost my employment, and so I shut down the project, which included a fence in the front, which I had mentioned to people when I'd been here at the city for different various things. So I didn't worry about it, and then just recently decided that we were going to take some money out of retirement to try to get that fence in. Our house is unique because it's up on a tall hill, if you know what house I'm talking about, on 720 Ridge Drive. And because most of our yard is in the front, we put a lot of money into the front so we could have a sitting area, a eating area, and also so we could have a play area for our grandkids when they come over. So then when we got ready to do it, we learned that there was a new law, or at least that's what we told, that the fencing laws had gone in, so you couldn't put a fence in the front except for a 3-foot fence, which wouldn't work for us because we were doing it for safety reasons because of the busy road. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know how else to tell you, so we would like to request that we could have permission to do that. So.
Okay, thank you very much. I had an opportunity to visit Delaney's home and kind of get a visual of their situation. I know, Austin, you've been out there as well. I think what Mr. Laney, I think he stated that he prefers to get a variance as opposed to doing it another way if possible. And we talked previously in meetings about changing the ordinances for one situation. That seems to be a long, arduous process just to make an exception for one and create a new ordinance for it. So I don't know all of the ins and outs of this issue, so I wanted to give the staff a chance to comment about that, but also get some input from council. Some of the points that Mr. Laney makes are I think valid. He does have an area out in the front that is easily accessed by teenagers and others who choose to just go over and make themselves at home and create some degree of mischief. But it is a unique situation. I would agree with that, and I think it merits a second look. Austin, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so yes, I met Mr. Laney out on his property. We walked it, and it's clear to see why he wants to do what he wants to do, because I guess it's the east side of his property, the north and east side of his property has a large grassy area. It's probably the largest lawn area that he has on his property, actually, just given the topography of the lot and everything. And so his house is up rather, I would say, quite a bit higher than the street itself. And so it's a good area, if you have kids, grandkids, whatever, that's a good area to play. And so it makes sense why you'd want to kind of have that little privacy or security, from a busy road there. So, we tried to look at it. We looked at the code itself. The code doesn't give us a whole lot of leeway or discretion as staff. It just basically says in the front 10 feet of a property, the fence shall be no taller than 3 feet. If it's a privacy fence, you can go up to 4 feet if it's like a see-through type fence, like a picket fence.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That's on a corner.
it's not a corner.
Well, you're saying.
Yeah.
3 feet, because you can put a higher fence if you're not on a corner.
Oh, on a side, yeah,
On
on
a
a
s-
side
on a
yard
side
you could,
yard.
yeah, so he's not on a corner lot, he's just like in the middle lot, so he only
Okay.
has one property line, if you will, that fronts a
Okay.
public street.
Okay,
Is there any way for me to share my phone so that people can see some
Yes.
pictures I took?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna have to be taught how to do that.
go to your screen share.
Can I say something else while that's happening?
First, yeah.
Is that possible? Can I take my whole 3 minutes?
This on this?
I just wanted to share that our neighbors on left and right have high fences. And I've talked to all my neighbors, left and right, the people in front of us was Troy Slade, who's on the planning commission. And he's very supportive of it. Nobody has an issue with what I want to do. So I just wanted to, and we don't want an 8-foot fence, by the way. We don't want a 6-foot.
I think,
And a see-through fence.
yeah, I mean, when you look at the property, and I'll have pictures here to share in a minute, but, and Austin's got one up there right now. You can kind of see an aerial view of it. So this is a fairly unique situation in that you can see the edge of the driveway as it flows downhill. There's a pretty significant drop off during that last portion, and all of the landscaping in the driveway are up in an elevated position away from the lawn. And so,
This is pre-landscape.
yeah,
so, yeah, so like right here, everything this way is downhill and everything this way is up high, so it's up quite a bit higher than that lower area. So he wants to use this area of his yard.
yeah.
And the idea would be to have a fence that's kind of in this area like that, so that you can use this grassy area here. So that's kind of what we're looking at, but you know, I mean, this really is, that's his front, I mean, if you were to interpret it, that's his front yard. I guess I should draw this. This is the front yard. This is the backyard, side property line and side property line. So I guess the mayor's gonna share some pictures here.
Sorry, that's my granddaughter. There we go.
Hey, Austin, can you let Jason in the meeting? Looks like he's been waiting.
Yes.
Thank you, Carla. We can't see that from our view. Okay, now can I go back to sharing my screen as well?
Yeah, let me get that back on the screen here.
I got it.
Welcome, Jason. For the record, I'd like to welcome Jason Thielen to the meeting. Okay, so this is across the street viewing the property as it borders the neighbor. And you can see on the right-hand side is a fence. I think similar to the fence that Mr. Laney is wanting to put in.
Wait, what fence on the right-hand side? I'm not
You-
seeing it.
Well, I'm sorry, it's on the right-hand side of his property in this picture. The fence that you see there is actually the neighbor's fence. Can you see that, Carla?
Oh, okay, so it's like a wrought iron, okay.
Right
Yeah.
there.
So a 6-foot
Right,
open fence.
That's their, yeah, so it's that's their backyard. That's their neighbor's backyard, correct?
It's really their front yard too, because then you can see the fence swings around and goes behind that first tree and borders, it's probably about 3 to 4 feet off of the sidewalk. And it runs across the front. This is an unsanctioned fence, so it.
I was gonna say, I thought, the front yard fence ordinance has been around for a while.
Yeah, so this is the front of the house. So this is just left of what I was just showing. And you can see the unique shape of his yard. It kind of sweeps around, and that retaining wall is a fairly steep drop off from the driveway. There's another picture of the neighbor's fence. There's a picture of the driveway.
So Austin, when was the ordinance created for the 3-foot front fence or 4-foot semi-private? What year was that?
I'd have to check. I don't know the date off.
It's not anything within the last couple of years that I know of, right?
It's been over 10 years at least.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And I think in general terms, it's a good ordinance because it keeps it maintains the security to a minimum, given a 3 to 4 foot fence is not a very secure fence, but it's a boundary more than anything. But it also helps keep the visual not going that high. In this case, and I think that ordinance was designed more toward flat, regular lots.
Mayor, if I may, so
Yeah.
I think a big reason why the 10-foot requirement exists is because for safety. So if someone's coming out of their driveway, you want to have like a 10-foot visible area. So I can see a kid coming down the street on his bike or something on the sidewalk, and I'm backing out of my driveway and I want to be able to see that. And so, that front 10 feet of your property is typically, you don't want to block visibility there.
Right.
It's a line of sight thing, Troy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's why we maintain certain site triangles on corners. But in the event, in this case, in an open fence design, I don't know, it just seems to be a unique situation.
And Mayor, what's the interest here? Is to put a fence in front of this rock wall or starting at the rock
So he
wall,
would-
heading down?
He'd put a
around?
fence like this right here along.
Starting there.
Along the sidewalk,
Along the sidewalk.
and then as it wraps around the property, and I don't have a picture of the other end of his property.
But it curves, so.
Yeah, it does. Austin, you want to put that, that I can unshare my screen if you want.
Yeah, we could try and go to like a Google Street View. See if that would work.
Here we go.
Let's see, let's go back one more. Okay,
There we go.
there you go. So really, he wants to fence all of this area along here with, and mostly this area over here is kind of, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Laney, but that's kind of the area he's most really wanting to have that privacy fence is in that.
Yeah, I think
East.
someone pulled the wall west over because we landscape this is, it's different, a little different now than it shows there, but it's easier to get up on it now. than it was.
So I may have misunderstood. Did I hear you say you wanted a privacy fence down in that lower section?
No,
Or-
no, open fence.
It's an open fence the whole way.
So it'd be open, okay.
So it'd be, you'd have the visual that we need. But anyway, I guess at some point, I know there was some discussion about getting a variance. But I think, Austin, your point of view was that the variance would not qualify.
It's, we, looking at it, so there's, again, this is that, we get to that self-imposed question. We talked about this, I think, in another previous meeting.
Mhm.
So I guess it would, basically you have to meet 5 criteria in order to get a variance. And so he'd have to meet all 5 of those criteria. Whether he has a good chance of that, I don't know, maybe Hiram has a better.
Yeah,
I think we need to go through the process,
Yeah.
Austin.
Yep.
yeah, I think
Yep,
this
I
is a candidate for to go through the variance process, and, topography is definitely a factor that's considered, right? If you have a unique lot that's sloped and other things, a hearing officer is gonna consider that, or the Board of Adjustments are gonna consider that as a factor.
And if I look at this, you know, practically the front yard is kind of over where the driveway is. Then you have this wall, then you have this, what makes this so unusual is you have this huge round front edge, but it's actually on a corner too. So there's some
Actually, it's not on
uniqueness.
the corner.
Or sorry, on a curve.
Curve,
I mean,
curve. It's
yeah.
on a curve, yeah.
So it just, you know, it's not your typical front square edge. So yeah, I would assume this would be considered for a variance.
And to Carla's point earlier, you know, it's a visibility thing. It's having line of sight. Well, I would say 95% of this driveway is above what would be the fence height.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't get down to fence height until you hit the street. So that seems to be a unique circumstance as well. I just think it is worth a variance request, and that we ought to see how it can play out in that process. Any other thoughts? Lon, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think there's someone else here with public comment that'll fall right into this same.
Okay.
That I will comment on too.
Yeah.
That goes along with this.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for your comments. Mr.
you. So I'll fill out an application. I'll go back to the process.
Yeah.
Did I already, I think I sent you that application.
I got the application. I
Okay.
can fill it out. Come to this. So thank you.
All right, terrific. Thank you.
You want me to leave or can I stay?
You can stay as long as you want, as long as you can tolerate it.
You may be interested in staying, listening through the next comment,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, with Lon's lead in, we'll ask for the next guest.
And I'll get to practice what Mayor Stout did. I can share my screen if we need to.
Good luck with that. Let's see your family pictures.
I've got the one app I need right now.
Okay, we got something similar. I'm Lon Neal. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Darren Lee, and just moved in across the street from Lon, previously living just a few blocks from him, so.
We've got a similar thing, I guess, although we've had a fence there for probably 25 years, 20 years. And now that he's moving in, he wants to change the fence a little bit. We are also involved in an HOA.
Can you move closer to the microphone?
Yeah.
We've got a 9-lot HOA on Quail Hollow. What's their?
Quail Ridge.
Quail Ridge. And there's 9 of us there. And we have a strip of property. Can you show that?
It is,
Austin?
Yeah,
Out in front of it, that belongs to the HOA.
let me go to the county map so you can see the HOA.
The northwest.
There we go. Okay, this property belongs to the HOA. We had to have a certain amount of square footage for the HOA to make it work. And Darren's lot is right there.
So you can actually use that screen on in the podium there to annotate.
Oh,
Just
you know how to do that?
sure. Touch it with your, yeah, just doodle with your finger. It should
Yeah,
work.
so what you can see here, outlined here, that land there is HOA. Our lot resides here in this little triangle area there. And I think the fence that Lon's referring to is essentially, where can I clear?
I'll clear it. There you
Oh,
go.
thanks. So there was an original fence that came essentially down the lot line there. And that was about 6 foot offset is my recollection, Lon, off of the road.
Yeah, it's about 6.5 feet.
Can I share my screen? I'll show you where it was.
Okay, thanks.
We are diving deep into the technology tonight.
Everybody's using our 3 minutes.
All for spring,
Okay,
Jerry.
so there was where the fence was.
Right. And that's
Far off.
6 feet back from the curb and gutter there. And that's been there for a long time. My neighbor to the,
Yeah, here's another one that's on that same side of
Yeah.
the street.
I'm familiar with that area.
okay, all of those were allowed because we didn't have to put a sidewalk in there at the time. And we instead used the money to put a sidewalk in from the State Center down to, is it Orchard Lane down there by Moyle Drive?
Yeah, I think that's it.
so that people can walk to the church and have a sidewalk to walk.
Yeah.
So we used the money for that, put a sidewalk in down there, so we didn't have to put a sidewalk in here. We still have a 54-foot easement. And the city owns now then from the curb back to 10 feet back a curb. And that 10 feet goes right on top of this little retaining wall right here. And these oak trees right here, part of that was part of the reason for allowing this, because we had great big scrub oak trees there that we wanted to keep, and they're still there. And so what Darren wants to do is incorporate the HOA has agreed to let him maintain that property and fence it in. And that's nothing to do with the city, that's just the HOA. He's got a letter to that stating all that we've agreed to. So we just want to put the fence back in here, and same fence. In fact, we're using the same wrought iron fence, aren't you?
Yeah, it's identical material.
It is the same material as the fence, and then the posts are gonna be new.
To that other wrought iron
To
fence
this,
there.
similar to that.
It's
Yeah.
almost identical to that.
Except every other one, we have a wood post in. So it's all open.
And the concern is by bringing it from where it was at the 6-foot mark, bringing it into 10, it blows through a number of the scrub oak that are 15 to 20 feet tall, and we just didn't want to take those out.
So we're,
Understandable.
anyway, we're basically moving the fence 1 foot. Instead of 6 feet, we're moving it 7 feet.
So Mayor, I do want to comment
Yeah,
now on
please.
both of the things that have been said here.
Yeah, go
One
ahead,
side, I know we have these ordinances to help us be uniform in every area, but sometimes one size doesn't fit all. Sometimes there's things like this, or things like the first Laney's situation that do create a need to either grant an exception or do this variant, however we want to approach that. But one size doesn't always fit all, is in my opinion. To make that neighborhood look the best it can wouldn't be to change the way that face is looking, would be to stay similar to what it has been for years and years.
Thank you, Lon. Greg, any thoughts?
Nothing this time, thanks.
Jessica?
As the fence approaches the corner, I think it's Quail Ridge Court and Quail Hollow, is there, how close, and does that impact
It's probably 100,
visibility?
75 to 100 feet away from the front corner.
Your mic's not.
Okay,
It's probably 75 to 100 feet away from the front corner.
Yeah,
It's,
the fence will be starting,
Yeah.
Jessica, immediately adjacent to the front of the home. So everything from there to the corner, like Lon said, I don't know the exact footage, but it's 60 or 70 feet
Yeah.
before you'll hit the corner.
okay, so there's no site
Yeah, there's
problem.
actually trees in the front
They're gonna stay.
that are staying, that's near the corner, that still doesn't block the site triangle, but you won't even see that fence. So that, yeah, Austin pulled out one up right there. That
Yeah,
front
so-
little clump of trees is staying. It looks like
Clump here.
right in there.
And then on the other side of the road, is there a continuous sidewalk in
No.
place?
Yeah,
On-
well,
On the east side, there is. So
Okay.
this east side, there is sidewalk. It's just on this west side. And it's really, if we zoom out, you can see it's essentially this entire block. So it goes from this street intersection down to this street intersection here.
Right.
There's no sidewalk on the west side of the road there.
But there is sidewalk to the north of that.
Okay, that was my only two questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Jason, do you have anything? Jason, do you have anything?
I guess just a general question, the lot to the south, or south there, they're like about 3 feet off the curb or something close to that, right?
Yeah, it's probably no more than 3.
I remember when that went through and I went to the city, I'm like, what is this? We can't put a sidewalk in here. And they said, no, there's no sidewalk. And the ordinance allows it to be 3 feet off the were to be exactly where it is, so it met the ordinance, has something changed between then and now? I'm curious. That would,
The only thing that's changed there is some of the owners. One of those, the McMillans on the corner is about 3 feet off. Lon, I think you measured that, or I did. And then the other one that's owned by the
Bennett's, Bill and
Bennett's
Lori
is
Bennett.
about 4 feet off. And the one that we had was 6 feet off. So average is
Yeah,
4.
the topography on that one changes too, so they moved 6 feet off, it seemed, going up a hill to stay fairly level there, so it stayed up on top of the hill instead of a foot off of the sidewalk years ago, because that rock wall is only maybe 30 inches or something from the,
It's about 4 feet.
yeah,
I get my
30,
right around there.
okay.
Yeah, we put that retaining wall in there so we can have the road not have to go up a hump and down.
Wasn't the existing wrought iron fence installed years ago, like 20 plus
20
years ago?
yes.
Yeah.
no, it wasn't. That was installed by, just right before the Lees bought it.
Yeah.
So that wasn't 20 years ago. That was, well, yeah, I guess maybe 12 years ago.
Maybe the old fence. Was there a fence there before, Jason?
It was a,
Vinyl.
yeah, the white vinyl
Yeah.
fence.
I knew there was a fence there, but I couldn't remember.
And I think that vinyl fence is still in front of the Bennett's lot.
Right.
Again, the reason I'm trying to understand is we let them go off 3 feet there, or whatever that amount is. And there's another 3 feet continuing on past the Bennett's lot. And then once we get to the Lee's lot, we're gonna push it back. Is that what the proposal's for? And the question is, can we push it back 6 versus 7?
We're pushing it back to 7.
It was 6, Jason, the wrought iron. We're gonna push it back 7.
And that's what you want to do, just to foot into it. Okay.
A big part of that is because of the vegetation, the oak trees and then that sycamore tree right there. We didn't want to have to take our trees out. There you go. That's good.
Okay. I guess I'm just kind of wondering why you wouldn't want to pose, just bring it along the same as it is all the way to the south along that whole road.
That rock wall would be the reason. It would need to either
Okay.
be up on top or down even closer to the road because of that.
Okay.
rock wall.
That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Carla?
No, I'm still having a hard time. I think it's because I'm not sure I'm not familiar with this area or what you're looking at. So I'm just having a hard time visualizing it, even though you guys are showing the videos, but you guys are very obviously familiar with this.
Yeah.
I'm not quite seeing the picture, sorry.
Okay, well, okay, so whatever is being proposed, it still needs to go through the right steps, right? I mean, we're not gonna give approval tonight
No.
because it has to go through the process. So,
on this one, there are differences between this situation and the previous one. This one, the fence would be within city right of way. The other one, the fence would be on their property line.
okay,
And Austin, I don't know if you had that discussion with Craig.
Yeah, so the conversation that I had with Craig earlier today, and Hiram was in the room with Craig when I had this conversation, is essentially this area here is public right of way. So that in between where they're building their house, there's the open space, which is where those trees are. That's private open space owned by the HOA. And as Lon Neal said earlier, they've reached an agreement where the property owner would be able to take care of that. And they're hoping that he could fence it in. So, but the issue here is that's 10 feet of public right of way. That's reserved for, the cities, whether we want to put a sidewalk in there, typically we have a sidewalk, park strip, curb and gutter. That's kind of our typical, what you see in most public right of way. Obviously this is different. No sidewalk was ever installed here. So I talked to Craig about this and we talked about the possibility of a variance. And that came up in the conversation and he said, because this is in public right of way, it's not on his property. A variance deals with a specific private piece of property. And so the variance officer could grant a variance on the private property, but this is not on his property. This is in the public right of way. And so therefore, it's not something that you that he would advise taking through the variance process. And in fact, he said, we might have other options where we could reach some kind of an agreement with the city, between the owner and the city, if we were to allow some type of deviation from where the fence would go in this area.
So that would be our option.
That would be
The
based on the
variance is
city's,
not an option
city's
on this
decision,
one.
yeah, not.
So
not-
is there a reason why the fence can't be 10 feet back outside of the city's right of way? What is the reason?
Yeah, the reasoning is, if you see those trees there, if we go through that 10-foot line, it'll remove a large majority of these mature scrub oak and potentially that sycamore. And we didn't want to take out oak that's probably been there for 100 years or so. We didn't want to disrupt the landscape.
That's the same issue that we had 25 years ago when we put that in, and we didn't want to do that. So the city came up with the idea of, okay, go ahead and put your fence up closer, which we did. But use the money to put a sidewalk somewhere else. And that's when we took the sidewalk from the church down to Orchard Drive.
It all makes, the reasoning makes sense to me. I think it's important for the city to have some process so that the next person that comes along, we say, it's possible if it goes through a process and gets approved, through the proper channels.
Right.
Can I ask one more question, Mayor?
Sure.
And this is more just for clarification, as this issue's come up a couple times with Shane over the last 14 years. But so Lon, on your Quail Drive, Quail Hollow Lane here, when the city agreed not to put that sidewalk in there, continuing it, did the city ask you for the funds that you would have put into that sidewalk, and then they use those funds over at the stake center?
Yes.
Okay. I just say this to the council. I did a development once and I had the same thing, but there are other developments that come in that they say they don't want to put a sidewalk in. And to some people, we say you don't have to. And for some people, we make them pay. It's a very disjointed, unfair process, I believe. And I think we need to be clear on the city council that if we're going to make someone do it, we have to make everyone do it. But I didn't remember that on this particular development. So thanks for reminding me on that.
And on that, Jason, I think there's a section in the code that says this is the typical cross section for a city street unless it's varied by the city council. And so I vaguely remember this one. I remember the other one Jason mentioned for sure. Sometimes it doesn't seem to make sense to have a sidewalk there. So, Three Falls is an example. I was a proponent of not having sidewalk there because I know what it costs to maintain sidewalk, and with all the trees and everything up there, and for the small amount of foot traffic that will probably be there, I could see where it's a long-term issue for the city maintaining that much sidewalk.
Yeah.
So,
Well, my point is, I get it. In this situation, we didn't want it, but we didn't just say no. We took those funds and put it somewhere else. Obviously a week or two ago, we had someone that came in over there. I think it was Josh James's property, and questioning whether or not to put sidewalk. I just think we need to be consistent on that policy is all.
yeah, I see what you're saying, Jason.
Okay, so I guess where we go from here is file for or is there a form that they need to complete for this, since it is a little different being on a city right away? They proceed.
So it wouldn't go through the variance process. It'd be a matter of working out some kind of an agreement, whether that be with administration or working with the council themselves to figure out how we want to what we want to allow and how much.
Okay, so why don't we move forward by meeting with Shane and or Austin and kind of walking through a plan and figuring it out, and then that'll come back to the council for a vote.
Okay.
All right?
Great, so we can write up, get with Shane Austin. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
We
Thank
can
you.
bring
Can
it
I
back
ask-
in 2 weeks.
Just one more quick question. So if that is in the city right of way, then there's an agreement on maintenance and that carries through from homeowner to homeowner? How does that document work?
That could be handled by recording a document against, well, how are we gonna do that, Hiram? Can we tie an off-site, off-property requirement to a specific lot? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think that you can do that.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
a number of ways we can draft if the city council desires to go with some sort of lease agreement or something for the fence property that could be revoked at any, any time. If
Yeah.
we could structure it in a way to require maintenance.
Okay, Lon?
Jessica, were you referring though to maintenance? We all maintain our park strips. Anyway, we all mow or take care of the trees or whatever that's in the park strips right now. Is that what you're referring to as far as maintenance?
I'm referring to if the fence starts to need repair at some
Okay.
point in the future, that kind of.
Good point.
Hey, I've got a question. So if you were to put the fence behind those trees, what would be the distance from the street?
40 feet.
I'm not positive, Carla, the exact distance, but I'm guessing it's probably 30 to 40 feet back.
Yeah, I think it is 40 feet.
Probably not much up from where it is now,
Right.
right?
Yeah, you wouldn't
Maybe 10
gain
feet.
much.
So what I understand, then we're gonna meet with Shane and with Austin and put together some kind of a agreement to come back to city council for a vote.
Sorry, it'll need to come to city council for a vote because it does involve changing the nature of city property.
Right, I understand. Okay. Can we then come in 2 weeks so that you can,
We should be able to accomplish that.
okay, we'll talk to you. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Are there any more fencing issues that we need to discuss tonight? It's kind of nice having people here for public comment. We've been without it for a long time. So thank you for coming to the meeting. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward with any public comments? Okay, then we will move to the next phase of our meeting. Reports and presentations. I know we're going to talk about the budget at length tonight, Shane. So is there anything else that you wanted to present?
Just, I put in front of you kind of an updated graphs and information of where our sales tax revenue is. It's trending up, looks really good. No real issues in the finance report, and as the mayor just mentioned, we'll discuss the budget as the next item. So unless anyone has any questions, I don't have anything else.
All right, with that, let's move into the action items and begin with A to look at the tentative budget. And we will need a motion at the end of this discussion to approve the tentative budget or not.
Yes, we will. So if we just kind of go through a few things here and then we can answer any questions and go from there. So I've been able to meet with almost all of you on the tentative budget. And we went through it. It's great to have those discussions because some questions are asked and it brings some things to light and helps make things better. So just hearing the budget message, I'll just run over some of these bullet points. For our revenues, everything appears to be stabilized, looks good. We just saw the graph of the sales tax revenue and it's trending up. Our property tax looks fine. So that's good news. Included in this budget, we figured in to the budget 3% merit increase for employees. We're working on just looking at comparisons and everything now. I've provided some information for you, some more detailed information along those lines. On the benefits, medical, our increase this year was 5.4%. Dental was 0.5%. Capital projects, some of our capital projects that were planned for this current budget year have been kind of postponed. We're still trying, but chances are some of these will roll over into the next budget year. So you'll see some duplication from last year's capital project list to this year. And we have a detailed list of these capital projects that we can look at in more detail in a minute. Our equipment replacement, we again have a detailed equipment replacement schedule. It's a work in progress. We're doing some more work and trying to go out 5 years here so we can see what the future holds as far as equipment needs. One thing that you will notice on there, we have kind of an anticipated lifespan for each piece of equipment. And then the year that they'd be replaced. There's several pieces of equipment that are beyond that time, but we still feel comfortable that it's a good piece of equipment and functional. And so we're not just replacing it because the schedule says to replace it on this year. So included in this budget is one new pickup, the 10-wheel dump truck that we discussed a few meetings ago. And then we have our backhoe we lease, our Mini X we lease, and then our sweeper is a lease to own. And the last payment, it's around 50,000, would be in this coming budget year. Personnel, we have in there a couple of part-time positions if we decide that we need them. One is put in there as kind of an open space and trails person, kind of a 20-hour-a-week person to help in those areas and recreation. The other would be potentially an HR person to help relieve some of those responsibilities from some of our other staff. For the solid waste, this budget includes a 1.4% cost of living for ACE disposal. That is based on an index that's listed in our contract and agreement with them. And then also an increase of from $25 to $29 per ton for tipping fees. I went through it. It wasn't in the packet. I think everyone but Jason will have this. There's a spreadsheet where I went through an analysis to see if we need to increase garbage rates. We're recommending right now that we increase rates at 25 cents per can to cover these increases. Pressurized irrigation, we're working on the rate study with Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham. It's ongoing. I hope by June that we have the first draft of this to review at the city council. Emergency services, the increase right now is looking like about 1.65% for police and 1.22% for fire. Part of this item B on the agenda, I think we can roll these into one item. Last year, the interlocal agreement was amended. The amendment was if the proposed increase in public safety exceeds the average new property tax revenue of the two cities, that it takes both city councils to approve moving forward with that budget. We're asking for that to happen tonight. It's borderline depending on a couple of things that the district is still waiting on related to that budget, if that will be necessary or not. But I don't think it's a bad thing to have the council approve the Lone Peak budget as part of our tentative budget. The American Rescue Plan funds, we're anticipating that at some point. They're telling us that it will be spread over 2 years. We don't have a ton of detail yet. We have more than we had 2 weeks ago. So in talking with Dave Sanderson, he recommended not including the revenue or expense side in the budget right now, but we will add that in a budget amendment later.
I'm sorry, did you already say out loud what the number looks like it'll be? 1.1?
The number the last number we were given for Alpine would be 1.17 million.
Yeah.
My understanding is it would be split equally over 2 years.
Mhm.
So if you want to look at proposed projects, Austin, can you pull that up?
See, this, is it the map?
Yeah, we'll go there first. So we're working on the details of our street maintenance plans for this summer. This map shows some potential candidates for overlays. We won't be able to get all of these this year, but we'll be able to get a good share of them. Since we don't have planned in this budget a project like our Pioneer Drive or the 800 South project, we increased what we plan to spend on street maintenance with this budget by probably close to 200,000. Costs will be higher this year with oil and that, but we'll still get more on the ground than what we have in the past. So we're working on kind of a 5-year plan, but we needed to get the budget done first, and then it'll be a work in progress to get that 5-year plan for street maintenance.
So Shane, I meant to ask you this morning,
Mhm.
that 723,475 amount that you have on the general fund for streets, is that because we're doing more projects or just assuming that costs are gonna be higher?
Are you on the summary page?
Yeah, I'm on
Mayor?
this.
Yeah, so that is actually the total street budget. So there's a detailed page for each
Yeah.
one of these line items. And so we could turn to that and look at what's included with that. So part of that would be operations, part would be projects.
There's an increase of what, $150,000.
Yeah, and that would be in projects.
Is that because of the cost of materials, or because we have more projects?
Well, since we don't have like a street rebuild project, we felt like it'd be beneficial to the community to spend more money on just kind of maintenance overlays, chip seals, seal coats, and those things. So the projects we've been doing the last couple of years have been, $400,000 to $500,000 for like a rebuild project, like 800 South. We've had to pull some money from reserves to fund that. And so we're not proposing that entire amount to go towards maintenance this year, but an additional probably 200 over what we've done the last several years.
Okay, so that's because we're doing more work.
That's right.
Not because it's more expensive.
That's
to do
right.
the work.
Some of it would be more expense, but we will get more square footage treated in one manner or another
Okay,
with the increase in funds. So let's see. So we kind of talked about street maintenance and we usually put an amount in there and then we start getting our streets together and candidates for each different thing out of our toolbox. And then most of that work would be done really between July and September at the front end of the budget year. We also have the Westfield Road sidewalk improvement project that we discussed. We're planning on another water line replacement project. This PI SCADA system improvements, that would be adding some additional endpoints in our SCADA system to monitor different things like we've had a few issues with rocks causing a pressure reducing valve to stick open, and an area of town goes up to 180 pounds pressure. And we're not aware of it until somebody calls and says, hey, I got a lot of pressure here. What's going on? And so by adding some of this in, it will alert our operators when there is a problem like that. This Alpine Cove emergency connection, that's the 50,000 that the county gave us for that connection when the cove was annexed. We just haven't been able to get to that project yet, so that should happen for sure this summer. And then just some other things, the tree trimming, just annual stuff, miscellaneous sewer improvements. Usually that's some minor things. And then when we do overlays, doing concrete rings around manholes and making our roads better that way. Storm drain improvements, just some miscellaneous projects here and there. Wherever we can, if we're doing a street improvement project, we try to, if there's a way to do it, get rid of cross gutters. If you pay attention to cross gutters throughout the city, on either side of them, the water that kind of collects in there and then tracks out, it deteriorates the asphalt at a way quicker rate than anywhere else on the road. And so we've made an effort to design around not having cross gutters in more recent years and addressing those whenever we can. The fire station remodel, we felt like on this item that it would be beneficial to have our new chief on board, start that process up again. I think we need to get an architect to kind of help come up with a concept plan, a rough cost, bring that back to council, decide on a direction to go, and then move forward. We plan in here to have about 585,000 in the budget to go towards that, and then look at funding options for whatever is north of that number, possibly a bond. The roundabout landscaping project, just spruce that up and make it look nice down there. And these are rough numbers here. We haven't done super detailed cost analysis on these. Burgess Park Pavilion improvements, that was a request that came that we look at doing something with the pavilion on the south end of Burgess Park. The Healy Park pickleball courts would be one of those projects that will probably roll from this budget to the next, as well as a couple of these others, like the sprinkler project and the cemetery expansion. Then we have some other kind of open space park improvements. Some money in there for things in Lambert Park. Three Falls flow trails. I don't know if we want to try to tackle there. There was a map created that had 3 flow trails up there. I don't know if we want to try to tackle all those in 1 year, or do one this year, do another next year, or something like that. This assumes that they will all be done at the same time.
I thought our previous discussion was that 2 would be done this year. Is that off base from what you remember?
I don't remember that, but that's entirely possible that that's what we discussed, but it would be easy to cut this back a little bit.
And you know what? I'm not sure if there's actually room for 3 up there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So yeah, however you'd like us to handle that, we're happy to do it.
Okay.
Hopefully within this budget year, 3 files will be finished up and we can put the parking lot in that we discussed there above the pond. We'd like to do the landscaping on the entrance to Moyle Park. We've had a plan for a few years for that. We just haven't moved forward with that plan. Anyway, those are kind of the projects that we've looked at for this year. If we've missed something or need to adjust something, we're happy to do that.
Did you get my text earlier today about the baskets, the flower pots?
No, but that's, in this Legacy Park sprinkler project,
That's part of it.
that's part of it. We would have a zone that's dedicated to watering those plants there. And then we have a plan in mind for how we could involve the other businesses in town by providing them the flowers if they would just take care of them and do the watering.
Yeah.
So that they're kind of invested in the community and everything.
That's great. So phase one would be getting legacy done.
Yep.
And then move to the next phase with community involvement. That's great.
And I think we could expand it down along our frontage here.
Yeah, so, yeah, that seems to be the most
Well, we've got
accessible.
2 blocks, whereas here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we could talk the fire guys into watering some flowers over in front of the fire station or not.
I heard they're just waiting to hose stuff down.
I don't know if they can take that kind of
pressure.
watering. So, but yes, that is something that
Good.
we're planning, so. You know, our budget is not static, but a lot of it's the same year after year as far as operations and things. It mostly comes down to changing in projects and if, you know, a little bit of equipment here or there. So anyway, I think it's fairly straightforward and
Yeah.
There's a lot of projects on there. And hopefully we have the bandwidth to get them accomplished. Sometimes it's a problem in managing that many projects, even if, you know, they're not things we're doing ourselves. If they're other contractors, it still takes a lot of time to manage seeing those projects through.
It's like me on a Saturday. I usually plan 3 days of projects on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So, okay. So council, let's start with those online. Jason, do you have any thoughts to add or any questions?
I'm gonna be meeting, obviously say we're doing a tentative budget. You can still make modifications in the next month. I'm gonna be meeting with Shane to go over more details that I have a couple of questions with. We couldn't meet on Monday. So, but I guess in general, we talked before about having a breakdown of employees, total cost where we're not spreading them across multiple areas. I would assume that includes like, or could include maybe like overtime pay, you know, how that's paid, broken down into it. You know, if we're getting paid for being on other committees or, you know, or Olympic Safety District or anything like that. Do we have that spreadsheet?
We do. Yep, it's in the packet of information. In fact, yours is sitting on your desk here.
Oh, it's not the one that was mailed to us? Okay, sorry, I was looking for it there.
Right.
And that includes everything, including like overtime. I mean, what is it again? Can we basically see, because sometimes there's some things that aren't as static, that fluctuate more, like overtime pay. And can we see maybe a running 2020 scenario or 2019 scenario? Or do you have that broken down in that way?
Yes, that is actually in your financial report. But you do have to go, we have the information that you're asking for. I just need to add a couple of things that you just mentioned onto the spreadsheet that's been handed out to everyone as we've met to discuss the budget. And then
that's
everything will be there.
Okay, and that's broken down by individual?
It is.
Okay, well, perfect, thank you.
Can I make a small request? Can we get the next copy, the next version numbered, with pages numbered, so we can
That's
quickly reference?
been a request from everyone. I hope I can figure out how to do it, yes.
Okay, Jessica, any thoughts?
No, not at this time. Shane spent quite a bit of time going over in detail with me, so I appreciated that. I had a few questions that he answered clearly, and you know, it's just I think it's a good tentative budget. It's clear and easy to understand, and just appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I will say, I would encourage anybody who hasn't had the chance to meet with Shane to do so. It's amazing. It's hard to believe, but it's amazing how fast time flies when you're talking about the budget. We didn't have enough time in our meeting, so we'll meet again, but If there's a lot of material there. Carla, do you have anything?
No, same thing. I've already met with Shane and went over everything I had questions or concern about. And he was able to address all of those. If anything, I probably would like to see the same thing that maybe Jason's asking for. And if you could send me that, if you could send all of us that updated spreadsheet, that would be great. Thanks, Shane.
Yep.
Great. Greg?
Likewise, sat down with Shane, probably took 3 times as long as I thought, and I thought it was a few questions, probably became 20 or 30, and yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Ron?
Yeah. A couple things. I did meet with Shane also. It was beneficial. I think we need to make sure we all put our minds into it. On the increase for the solid waste, do we need a separate motion to change the consolidated fee schedule, or is that in the consolidated fee schedule?
What we were planning on doing is waiting until, see what the council's feeling was on that increase tonight. And then we would bring another amendment to the consolidated fee schedule back as a resolution for approval.
Okay.
And we'd anticipate that taking effect July 1st. So we have time to do that.
Time to do that before the budget is final then. Okay.
Has Highland had their vote on the fire and police budget?
They did last week.
And did it pass?
Yeah.
That was all I
That's all you have.
had.
Okay. Having heard all the questions, I'll entertain a motion for the preliminary budget. Fiscal year 2022.
And Mayor, maybe if we could add into their approval of the Lone Peak budget, if it's necessary, if that
Yes, please. Thank you.
differential.
Please. So
Highland
whoever
said
does
their,
make that
I wasn't
motion.
there. Highland said their motion got very long. Were you there? And it could be 2 separate motions too. It doesn't matter, but if you want to take care of it in one, that'd be great.
Okay. Anyone with a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution number R 2021-11 and accept the FY 2022 tentative budget as set and as proposed, and set a public hearing for June 8th for the final budget. As well, this tentative budget does reflect the change in the Lone Peak Public Safety District budget. And so I include that approval of that Lone Peak Lone Peak Public Safety District budget as part of the tentative budget.
Bonnie, did you get that? Okay, we have a motion by Lon Lot. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Jessica Smewen. Any further discussion on the motion? Greg?
Just one point on the public safety budget. I'm sure this has been reviewed, but the benefit cost increase of roughly 10%, over time. I mean, we could probably bear that a couple of years, but that'll eventually become unsustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hitting everywhere, but these healthcare costs and stuff are gonna overcome us in time.
I think it's a little better than it was 20 years ago when it was double-digit increases, but now we're up this high. Every percentage point counts. Okay, any other thoughts or questions on the motion before we go to the vote? Hearing none, we will go to the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jessica
Jessica,
seconded.
yes. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back and ask for a roll call vote on that. Starting with Jason.
Jason Thielen, yes.
Carla,
Carla Merrill, yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
and Greg.
Craig Gordon, yes.
Lon Lot, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Shane, for all your work
Yep.
that you put into it. So we've got about 20 minutes before we'll need a motion to go into executive session. Let's, so we've taken care of items A and B, right?
Yes.
So let's hear about retaining walls, the exception.
All right. Retaining wall exception. So this is so the way our ordinance is written, exceptions to the retaining wall ordinance can be made by the city council with the recommendation from the planning commission and also following a written recommendation from the city engineer. And so that's what we have before us tonight. In this specific situation, someone is asking for an exception on the distance between retaining walls. So if you look at this diagram here, the way that the ordinance is currently written, it requires a 2-foot space in between tiered walls. So you could have up to a maximum of a 4-foot wall before you would have to put a 2-foot gap in between the next tier of another following wall. And so the reason for this gap is for plantings, to kind of break the wall up. So it doesn't look like one big, huge wall, but we break it up with some vegetation and it's really for aesthetics. And so the city engineer double checked that. He reviewed that with our retaining wall guy, Alan Taylor, and just verified that that's the only purpose for why we have that rule. If we go down here a little bit, this is what the exception that's being requested. So our ordinance measures that gap in between the walls by measuring from the back of the lower wall to the front face of the upper wall. So that's a 2-foot gap. The gentleman that's requesting this exception is using, he wants to use these blocks called vertiblock. The vertiblock is 3 feet wide. It's a very thick block. And so the idea is it's thicker than maybe if you were doing like a rock wall. Most rock walls aren't going to be quite that thick. They're going to be 12 to 18 inches. And so what he's wanting to do is he would propose that there'd be a 3-foot gap, but he would measure from the face of the lower wall to the face of the upper wall. The interesting thing about the vertiblock that he wants to use is it actually has a divot in the top of the block, which allows you to put soil on top of it and put plantings up there.
How deep is that? How deep is that divot?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's about 5 to 10 inches. It's fairly deep, that it would be deep enough that, you know, the plants wouldn't dry out or in the hot summer or whatever. But it allows for plantings, which is the intention of having the 2-foot gap. And so in this situation, the engineer felt like, you know, it's accomplishing why we have this ordinance. It's not compromising the structural integrity of the wall. And so he recommended approval of that, as well as the planning commission. I think that's about assuming. So also, I guess one other thing to mention is the applicant that's requesting this says that he's not 100% sure that he would use vertiblock. He may just do a rock wall. And in that case, if it was measured this way, Jed noted that there would still be, so the rock wall at a maximum could be 18 inches. So it'd still leave plenty of space for plantings in between the 2 tiers.
And how, excuse me, how tall is the total retention?
So he's looking at 2 tiers, so 4 feet each.
Okay. Thank you, Austin. Thoughts, Lon?
I thought, Austin, I read or heard in the discussion that they weren't going to be a full 4 foot. That, I'm trying to see where I read that. Did I misread? Is it going to be 2 4-foot walls?
Yes. It's 2 4-foot walls. I mean, they would have to be under 4 feet, so that his objective is he doesn't want to have to go and get engineering on this and provide engineered plans, which our ordinance would require if he were to exceed 4 feet in height. And so thus, he's doing it in 2 tiers.
I looked at that property, where is it going? He's got rock retaining walls already. Is he taking them down and putting something new in?
Yes, yeah, maybe I'll pull up a visual of it, but yes, he's removing the existing rock retaining walls that are there. And he would essentially excavate out further. Basically, he'd kind of widen his driveway area out by excavating some of the other layers. So if we, let me go to a bigger screen here. So if you look here, this is the existing rock retaining wall. Oh, let me draw on the screen, maybe not. There we go. So that's the existing rock retaining wall right there. So he essentially wants to kind of widen this area out here so that he can have more driveway on the side of his home there. So this whole area would become driveway, and then he'd have the tiered wall in this area up here.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking that is it's not gonna infringe on the neighbor to the north, his view at all. It's actually gonna be lower.
Yeah.
You won't see that.
He's downhill from the neighbor.
Yeah, he's
So this is
downhill.
kind of a slope that goes down like that. So this driveway up here is quite a bit higher than his driveway down here.
He's still gonna, and it looks, if you're even 8 feet, he's probably still gonna have a slope down from the driveway.
Yeah,
there.
he will.
It looked like it was probably 10 plus. Okay, that's all I.
Okay. Great. No questions, thanks. Carla?
Oh, I guess my main thing would be if it's a vertiblock, maybe okay, but if he's going to do the traditional rock wall, then I think he needs to go by our existing ordinance.
So just a quick note on the way, so like a rock wall, the way they're constructed usually is you'll have a bigger boulder and a smaller boulder and it gets smaller as it goes up. So you're gonna have, as it goes higher, you're gonna have more space behind the rocks. And so that's why he would have an area to plant up here. Honestly, we were kind of looking at this and we discussed it, Jed and I, do we, breaking that up, the idea is if you're seeing it from a public right of way, you want to break that wall up. In this situation, because it's, if I zoom out here from the street, the only people that are really going to see it, I mean, if you're driving right here in this area over here, but it's you're looking at it from the side. So it's not the same as if you were looking at it face on. And a big reason why the ordinance was written is when you're looking at it face on.
Okay, so what about the people driving on the street? Well, from what I'm looking at now, it would be south, on the south end. If you're assuming that north is
Over here on the south?
Yeah.
You probably won't see it because the house is going to obstruct it, plus the pine trees that he's got here. I don't even know if I don't think you'd be able to see it from that south road.
Can you do it? Drop a Google one.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll see some of it, but the church is on that corner. So from that view, you won't see any of it, but go down near the church, just scoot to the west some more down there at the intersection. You almost won't see any of it until, like Austin's saying, you get to the side. The house hides it.
And I believe he's also planning to do a fence right here. So that would obstruct a lot of it as well. I mean, it's only an 8-foot tiered thing that he's looking at. A fence is 6 feet tall. He could go up to theoretically, he could go up to an 8-foot fence, but
And hide the whole thing.
Yeah, and hide the whole thing.
Jessica?
No questions.
And Jason?
Yeah, I don't have any questions either.
Okay. Do we need a motion on this or just direction?
We'll need a motion.
Okay. So if you have a motion, please state it.
Maybe, actually, sorry, I'm sorry, Rick, I do have one question. Are they gonna be required to put in planter bed in that these? Or do we not even care about the aesthetics? Like Austin was saying, they set it back, some of it's for aesthetics. I think there's a safety reason also, that was a very big part of it, but for the aesthetics piece, you know, it allows for plantings. Are they doing this with the intention to do plantings, or do we even care about that as a city?
The intention is to have plantings. So the planning commission's, the part of their motion was that they also made it a condition that he had to follow the rest of our retaining wall ordinance, and that would include putting plantings in there.
Okay, because I would agree with Lon. I mean, normally I would care if it was facing a neighbor. I think we should be much more strict. In this case, where it's facing his house, the aesthetics portion of it hurting a neighbor isn't there. So that's what we're still having them do planters in those, even with this new setup.
Like, I think it was mentioned before that this was the intent of this was, a lot of it was aesthetics. And I know, Jason, you're right. I was here when we amended the ordinance or changed the ordinance, and there was a safety issue to it as well. And, you know, we wanted to make sure as a city, we didn't get too high with our retaining walls. But this one is a little different, because I think when we discussed that originally, we were looking at a street view of most of the retaining walls.
I mean, so, you know, if he's creating like a dangerous drop off for his neighbor that's uphill from him, he'd have to have a fence on top, for example. That's part of our ordinance. So yeah, there are safety elements to the ordinance as well. Yeah.
Which would be met with all other conditions of rock
Yeah.
retaining walls.
But is there an aesthetic element? As you just asking, do we require landscaping in these normally?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main reason for it is
Okay, we do.
aesthetics, because I mean, the real reason why the ordinance was drafted is because there was a large wall that was visible from a long distance from a public right of way. And it just looked like a massive 30-foot wall. And so the
Yeah.
idea was we need to break that up or do something.
And there was some discussion at the time. I don't know if it was Heritage Hills or up by International, where the retaining walls were coming down into other people's backyards. They were large, you know, they're fairly high. And that's when we talked about having a fence set back, I think 2 feet from the edge of the wall. I don't remember the ordinance exactly, but, or 4 feet. But so that was an instance where it wasn't street front, it was a back property line, and but the safety measures, like as you mentioned, came into effect then.
Yeah. But I mean, let's say if, just hypothetically, let's say he didn't want to do a tiered wall and he wanted to engineer it and just do an 8-foot engineered concrete, let's just say it was a concrete retaining wall. He could do that, but then he would have to make sure that, you know, if it creates a drop off for his neighbor, he'd have to have that 4-foot space between the fence and the wall that you're mentioning. So.
So is there anyone prepared to make a motion? Juan, the motion machine, let's go.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the request to build a tiered retaining wall system, rock or verta block, spaced 3 feet apart, as measured from the front faces of each wall, with no wall being taller than 4 feet in exposed height when complete, with the condition that all other retaining wall ordinance be met.
Okay, we have a motion by Lon Lot to accept. Do we have a second to that
I'll
motion?
second.
Okay, Greg Gordon has seconded the motion. Discussion, anything, Carla, that you're, I know you had talked about holding if it was a rock wall, that should be, it should follow the ordinance.
Does that meet your expectation? Is it-
No.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just, I still feel the same way. I feel like, the exception with the vertiblock would have been fine, but I've already expressed what I feel, so I'm good. Go ahead and vote on it.
Yeah,
Well, so I can hear what you're saying though, Carla. I wouldn't mind
You want to amend your motion?
amending
Yeah.
that.
yeah. Is there a need for an exception?
No,
for-
I mean, I don't feel like that strongly either way, honestly, because this isn't affecting the neighbor next to them. You know what I would be more adamant if I felt like it was intrusive to their surrounding people. That's just my personal opinion. I don't feel like it needs to be changed.
Okay, well, I again, I hear what you're saying and understand that. Having done rock walls though, you're gonna probably find that a rock wall, you're gonna have the amount of distance between it as you need. Or it varies even. It's really hard on a rock wall to be exact. Every spot, you may have 5 feet, you may have 4 feet, you may have 3 feet.
Yeah, like I said, I'm good.
Okay,
I would prefer, I have my others, I have my preferences. I'm just voicing it. That's all.
okay. Thanks, Carla. Jessica, anything?
Nope.
Jason?
Nope.
Thanks.
Okay. So let's move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously. Next item.
Mayor, so we're almost to
Yeah,
7:30,
we
but
are. You're
you're
right.
Mr. Perry, right? I think this will be pretty quick.
Okay, let's do that then. If somebody can text Paxton and let him know that we'll be
I
on
don't
standby.
have his number, but I think
I do.
that's what I was gonna suggest.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and address that issue then, and I'll take her, Paxton.
Okay, Austin, you wanna?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce this. Okay, so Mr. Perry's here tonight and we're looking at a setback exception. This is for the Alpine View Estates subdivision located just west of 400 West. Specifically, we're looking, so Mr. Perry's lot is lot 13, but we're also looking at lot 12 as well for an exception tonight. Both of these lots, and let me pull up the map here. So lot 12 and 13, they're down here at the bottom of this cul-de-sac. We'll zoom in. Okay, so these lots, what we're seeing here, this is the plat that was approved, that's recorded right now. And so lot 12 and lot 13. Lot 13 fronts, so both of these lots front open space. So if I'll just highlight this area, all of this over here is open space, and all of this is open space. This is a PRD. As a PRD, that's the reason why they can get exceptions for the setbacks. It's one of the provisions of a PRD. But as a PRD, one of the things they have to do is they have to dedicate a certain percentage of their land as open space. And so that's what they did when they created this subdivision. And so these lots were positioned in such a way, so the Chatfield home is right here. And so the idea was they wanted to create these lots so that they would complement the open space, but as well as existing homes that were in the area. So if we go to the next screen here, this is the preliminary plat that was drawn up. And at preliminary, they did show setbacks on these lots. And so if you'll notice here on the south side of each lot, they showed a 30-foot setback. And the idea was that if you put a home on here on this lot here and you face it like that, according to our ordinance, the lot line that's most parallel to the back of the home, which would be this, would be your rear lot line. But it gets really narrow here. So if you're building a home that's you're gonna run out of setback really quick on the front and the back. And so the idea was, well, what if we put the rear setback here, the 30-foot setback, so that these odd shaped lots, you can better fit a home on there. And so this was the preliminary plat. This was approved by the Planning Commission. However, these setbacks were never recorded on the final plat, and it wasn't part of the final approval process. And so that's why they're coming here tonight, is they want to make these setbacks, get them approved formally for the final plat and for the existing lots. Mr. Perry's lot is lot number 13, and he wants to put his home on there like this. And it just makes it really hard if you have to put the home in between a 30-foot setback there and a 30-foot setback there. You're just really, you have a narrow pocket in which you can build in. And so Planning Commission looked at this, this is open space here. It's also downhill, so it goes down to the road. He wouldn't be, if he were allowed a smaller setback on this east property line, it wouldn't interfere with any neighbors or aesthetics there. And actually create more space in between him, the neighbor to the south, the Chatfield home, and the Perry home. And so the Planning Commission is recommending approval of this. Staff is in support of this. We see that it was approved at the preliminary and concept stages of the subdivision. Let's see if there's any other details. So, I mean, the way that the setbacks are being proposed, it would minimize impact to neighbors. Setbacks were already approved, again, a preliminary this way. And so the Perrys designed their home with this preliminary setback in mind. And now they're running up to an issue because our ordinance is saying that it has to be the other way.
Austin, are we talking about lot 12 here as well tonight, or just
Correct,
13?
both lot 12 and 13.
And what would be that actual rear setback? 15
So we would,
and
so
30
what
on
they're
the side.
asking for is to have a 15-foot setback
Okay.
on the east side. And then they would have a 15 on the west side with a 30 over here and a 30 here. So they would still have a 30 and a 30. They just would like to adjust that rear setback to the south, even though their house technically the rear of their house technically faces the east.
The idea being that, excuse me, that they don't back up to anybody's yard or a street. It's
Right.
more open space that just lets.
Yeah, we're not putting them closer to another. So like, if it was a normal lot, you'd have another
Yeah.
lot here and you'd have another home here and you'd be
Right.
encroaching on this neighbor. The idea is you're not encroaching on anybody.
Mhm.
And likewise for lot 12, if you're to allow this to be the rear setback, you're again not encroaching on anybody because this is all open space over here.
Okay, do we have anyone who's ready to make a motion or discuss the item?
Make a motion.
Thank you.
I move that an exception be granted and that a 30-foot south side setback and a 15-foot
Rear setback. That's your rear setback.
rear setback be approved for lots 12 and 13 of Alpine View Estates as requested by applicant.
Okay, we have a motion by Greg Gordon. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Jessica Smewen seconds the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Jason, I didn't hear you vote.
I voted the same time as Lon, but I,
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you, sir.
For what it's worth, Chatfield's even wrote a letter that said that they would appreciate the 30-foot setback on the south. You guys are awesome, by the way. I just moved from Oregon, and
Oh.
what you've done tonight would not even go down there.
You guys are going through some stuff up there.
Oh, yeah, you guys could save the city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss litigation.
Motion by Lon Lot. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Seconded by Greg Gordon. All in favor? Roll call.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call on that?
Yeah,
Aye.
it needs to be a roll call to go into
I
executive
thought it
session.
was, okay.
Greg
Great.
Gordon, yes?
Lon Lot, yes.
Jessica,
Jessica Smuin, yes.
Jason,
Jason Thielen, yes.
Carla,
Carla Merrill, yes.
motion passes. We will go into executive session. How long will it take us to switch over, Bonnie?
Give us like 5 minutes.
All of the council members should have received an email from Austin earlier today for a separate Zoom meeting. If you could please switch over to that now.
Are we expecting anyone to come back after this?
Let's see, we've got two more to discuss. Sir, are you here for any specific issue?
I'm gonna come in 2 weeks because I've got something that's gonna come forward to you guys, so I just want to see how things work. And I'm glad I came today because I thought it started at 7, so be here on time.
Yeah, we made
I
that
talked
switch.
to you on the phone, yeah.
Yes.
I'm Aaron Wood, I've chatted a little
Yes.
bit, I wanted to just put faces with names.
Okay.
Names and faces.
Great. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
We're adjourning the regular meeting now, and then we're going to go into a closed session to discuss litigation. So we appreciate you coming in. We'll see you in a couple of
All
weeks.
right, guys. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. You're gonna switch, are you switching us over, Austin?
I can report on here.
Yes. Oh, we're staying?
That's great on the planters.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they could go up in the holes or something. I don't know.
Yeah. They sit on a-
I'll stand by
Okay, we are back in.
Can we have that 9:55? It looks like it's well. We do have a trail on the backside of that last westernmost.
Okay, we are back in the live meeting.
Okay, we need to have a motion to come back into, out of executive into regular session.
Yeah, I move to exit executive session and re-enter public open session.
Thank you.
Second.
So motion by Greg, second by Jessica, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're now in open session again.
Are we on YouTube again?
Yes.
Okay, so we are on item E, guest house approval.
All right, guest house approval. So guest houses are a conditional use in each respective zone in the city, well, except for the business commercial zone. And so what that means is they're conditionally approved by the city council or the planning commission. In this case, guest houses are currently approved by the planning commission. And so the proposal that we have here tonight is to amend that ordinance so that guest houses are approved at the city council level. Some of the reasoning for this is guest houses are only allowed on lots that are 5 acres or larger. And also the idea was to create more consistency with larger lots and how decisions are being made on those. For example, our horse ordinance allows an exception for larger lots, which is approved by the city council if they can have more than the cap limit on horses, if that's approved by the city council. And so the idea was, let's be consistent with large lots. Let's take this item to the city council. Also, in the coming years, most of the remaining large lots that we have in town are probably going to be, most of them are located up in the Three Falls area. Up there, we're dealing with open space in addition to the Three Falls HOA. And so it's a little more complicated. There's some politics involved there. So it's probably a better idea to have those types of situations and exceptions being granted by the city council rather than the planning commission. So that's what we have here tonight. All we're doing is just taking the ordinance, amending it, removing the term planning commission shall approve, and it shall now say city council approves guest houses.
Okay, that's an easy one.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2021-11 as proposed.
Motion by Lon Lot, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Lon Lot to approve and a second by Jason Thielen. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I guess I feel like it's okay to have planning commission do it. They're removed from the situation, they're a body that isn't supposed to be political. They should be steady in their decisions, and I don't know. Me personally, I feel like I would be okay with both of those things going to planning commission.
Do we have any idea how many 5-acre lots do we have in the city?
I'm not sure. There's definitely some up in Three Falls. There's
Yeah.
probably a handful of others.
There are
So
a
this
few
isn't
others,
something that's
yeah.
gonna be coming in front of city council very often.
Yeah, I mean, just as an example, in the time that I've been with the city, which is about 4 years, every time someone's come to me and asked, can I build a guest house? I say, well, are you on 5 acres? And every single time they've said no, except for about 2 weeks ago when a gentleman did have 5 acres. So that's the first time in 4 years that I've ever come across that.
Yeah.
He does meet all the requirements, and that property is located on the west side of town, over kind of by Dry Creek, Long Drive, that area over there.
I think we have a few 5-acre lots off of Preston, don't we? At least a couple.
They could
Yeah.
be that big.
Yeah.
A lot of the lots up there
Yeah.
though were tied up in a conservation.
Conservation,
Yeah.
easement, yeah.
All but like 60,000
Right.
square feet.
So they wouldn't have the room for a guest house.
There-
So
There is one, I mean, but it's not, the guest house is already in place. It has a conservation easement even, but I mean, if they're gonna put it in there, they may already be there.
Yeah.
okay.
So I have a question. So with very few of these coming to the city, what caused the fine tuning and seeing that this might be better served under city council?
Well, so we had a request from a gentleman up in Three Falls that wanted to do this. He wanted to put a guest house on his property. Was on 5 acres. The way that the HOA document up there, what's the term I'm looking for? CCNRs, restrictive covenants, limited kind of what he could do. And anyways, so that got the conversation going. We're looking at it. So, okay, so this also has to go to the city, who approves it, the planning commission. And then we started thinking, well, is this something that we want handled at a planning commission level? And I believe there was a comment, we brought this, and there might've been a different conversation that we brought up in one of the council communications. And it was the idea, this conditional permit was brought up a little bit. And I think that idea also came from there. So it's kind of a combination of those two things.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of situations or instances in our ordinance where the planning commission is the final approving body. On all the subdivisions, all these things, the council is. And so it felt to staff like it might be more appropriate, unless the council disagrees, that the council be the ones to approve those. So
What kinds of things would the council be approving if there's already a 5-acre criteria? Is that kind of a go or no go based on the 5 acres? Or are there other things that have to be evaluated?
So the complete list of criteria that they have to meet, guest houses are listed as a conditional use in the zone. Guest house is on 5 acres, shall be placed on a lot of an area not less than 5 acres. Guest house shall not be less than 30 feet, shall be located not less than 30 feet to the rear of the primary dwelling. Water service, so this is another big requirement, is the water service shall be the same as a principal dwelling, so they can't create a separate water and sewer connection for the guest house. And then they also have to pay hookup fees. Guest house shall be an integral part of the site plan for the principal dwelling and attendant lot area. Prior to approval, a site plan showing the proposed location of the guest house and provision for utilities, vehicular access, and other standards and conditions shall be submitted to the planning commission for
I think
review.
there's like a square footage percentage too of the main dwelling and all of that. But if he has CCNRs, we can't do anything to change what the CCNRs have. The restrictions around that though.
Right.
I don't know.
And I guess to Jessica's point, there is this list of requirements, and if they meet them, can we tell them no, or could the planning commission or city council, either one, tell them no?
Well, I think because it is a conditional
That's true.
use, it's still subject to their discretion,
Yeah.
if I'm not
So
mistaken.
wouldn't that just also say that it needs to not be political? Like if they meet everything in the checklist, but for some discretionary reason, I mean, to me, it would lend itself to be outside of, maybe that influence. I'm just trying to understand why the council would be a better determiner over planning commission, if someone can help me understand that better.
I'll put my 2 cents in, Jessica. I've actually been a proponent of not having anything where the city council doesn't have the final say. Meaning the elected body, the planning commission should not be able to force anything on the elected body. In this case, it's conditional, which means there are some reasons why you might say yes, might say no. Everything from where it sits on the mountain, or it's too close to a house. You could do some. But my big thing is, and I agree with what they're doing, is the planning commission should not have the final say in anything. Because what we're saying here, it could play it to retaining walls. It could play to heck subdivisions if they meet all the ordinances. Does it really need to come to us? We can go through a lot of lists, but I just think it's very healthy that a non-elected body not have the final say in anything. But that's my opinion on it.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
So a question I would have is would turning this over to city council open it up to more requests? Because there's a family that I think has met with you, Austin, and perhaps Shane, who wants to do a guest house, and theirs is to move into their house so they can knock down their old house. So they'll move into a house on their own property. They're calling it a pool house, but it'll be a dwelling for a period of time. And then once their house is built, then they promise they won't use the house as a residence, but it'll be set up to be a residence. So, I can see something like that coming before the city council as well. And that now we're asking for a lot of more activity. So I can see where Jessica is going with this.
Yeah. I think a big limiting factor is the 5-acre requirement. That's like number one. And so that severely limits it throughout the city.
As long as that becomes the filter.
Most of the time, I tell someone in a phone call, do you have 5 acres? No. Okay, well, sorry, you can't do it. And they're like, okay, well, I guess I can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. So that's usually how most of those requests go. The situation that you're talking about is a rare circumstance that we hardly ever see. But would we see more of them? I don't know.
It's a repeat of something we didn't see.
on smaller lots.
Yeah.
Right.
It's requested quite often on smaller lots.
Yeah.
So, and I guess for me, the other part of it is, planning commission approves one somewhere, city councilman or whatever's driving down the road sees a second house on a lot, and like, where'd this come from, and not being in the loop at all. It just felt like the council should be in there, but we're either way.
To Jason's point.
I think your point as well was that the council's the deciding body on horse property deviations above 5 acres. So this would be consistent with that.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Unless there's other input, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 I think I heard unanimous. Any opposed? Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. Last item, final approval of the trail map.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the final chapter of this before going to construction, and just wanted some just final input from the council. We have this proposal for the structure part that would hold the actual trail maps. They're built to last. I mean, they're $8,190 each, but they're very well built.
Wow.
They won't be the wood structures that, you know, maybe have a 10-year life or something like that, that we've seen some of those types in the park. So we plan for 4 structures in Lambert, these sign structures in Lambert Park. We talked about a 5th one up at the pavilion area. There's other ways we could do that if you don't want to go this direction on that one. We looked at some various options for how to, you know, we have the signs, the kind of mapping created. Now, what's the finished product going to look like? So there's 3 options that we looked at. One, they call it sublimated metal print. So they print the map right on the metal. That's the most expensive.
How resistant is that to graffiti and things like that?
They have a graffiti resistant finish on it. One of the questions we had is, you know, if somebody takes a knife or a sharp object or
Yeah.
something, how's it gonna hold up to that?
And it's color.
It's color. Yep. I'm sure those are very nice. The second option is a vinyl print, kind of like a street sign that would stick onto a sheet of aluminum. And then the third is a similar, but it is an actual street sign material, the high visibility, low light. Let's see, when it's getting dark, if light hits it, it illuminates like these high intensity street signs would. It's actually the cheapest of the 3 options.
How durable is that compared to the first one?
I think as far as thickness material and the kind of base material, I think they're all similar. It's just the finish. One thought I had for $108, we could have one of these printed. Let you look at it. If you like it, we go with that. If you don't, we investigate further into one of these other options.
That would be nice.
I like that idea.
Do they have any samples they could give us of stuff that's already been made up?
I'm trying to think, most of the signs that we've had done in the last several years have been this high intensity sheeting. You'll know when you hit it with your headlights, you'll know
Yep.
that it's high intensity. And
That's the high visibility overlay film. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, you look at, I mean, the housing is $8,000. So the print itself is fairly insignificant, I guess.
Right.
As part of the whole unit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which one is the, because this will have to be updated periodically. Is there one that lends itself to updating better?
So our sign salesman on this high visibility option, the 3rd option on this cover sheet, he says that it has a 12-year guarantee to not fade. And he's saying that product is superior to this 3M product that's the second option. That conversation was between Jed and our sign guy. So the others, you know, they'll all fade over time. I'm not familiar with this first option. I've not seen one. I can kind of visualize what it would be. It might look a little more like an artist's painting, you know, of that map. But my guess is it would not last as long as the 3rd option.
That's what I'd be worried about is the scratching that you talked about, because, you know, people are gonna do that. It's just gonna happen.
And when they do it, it's $108 versus $531.
Yeah.
I like bottom option, the 108.
And notice that one of our line items in the budget was to put cameras on public spaces. So I feel like we should be really diligent about, you know, putting a camera on some of these assets because they will be vandalized.
So we're running, we've got a
You got
couple
some?
that we had to tweak a couple things, and Greg's working on that.
Good
So,
deal.
Yeah.
Good.
And how do these hold in the sun, up to the sun? Because that's kind of the main.
That's my understanding. That's the 12-year guarantee. So.
Okay.
And will it have a red roof, the structure?
No, so if we want it, what we proposed in this is like our sign out here, just a rusted, just to blend into the landscape and.
Rusted, yeah.
Yeah. Pre-rusted. It's kind of like pre-washed jeans.
Yeah.
Get something up there that has a worn look to it.
Yeah, the roof would actually just be taking a sheet of 1/4-inch plate and bending it to the pitch of the roof. And then he planned to weld some square stock on there to make it look like a standing seam
really?
metal roof.
Okay.
To give it a little.
So it won't be
Real
the actual
durable.
stuff.
Very durable, yeah.
So when these go in, can some of the other sign kind of pollution be taken down? Will that streamline that when the kiosks go in?
We can have as much or as little signage up there as you'd
Okay.
like, really. So,
Do you just need direction on this?
we've just spending money here. We just need a vote.
Okay.
You know, if you want to go ahead with the structures, have them begin to be fabricated while we get one of these $108 signs for you to look at. If everybody's happy with it, then we put in the full order.
Yeah, I'd recommend a motion that would encompass any expenses that might come through, no matter what material we select, because we may say compelling reason to go a different direction once we see that material and see the comparisons. So probably something that gives you the latitude to move back and forth between those materials would be good.
Okay.
Do we have a motion? Juan, you're up.
I make a motion that we have staff move forward with the rusted structures, 5 rusted structures. And the high visibility overlay film. If we I don't mind having just one. If they'll print one, I say we print one high visibility overlay film and look at that one.
Okay. Is that your motion then?
Yes.
Okay. Bonnie, did you get it? All right. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Greg Gordon. Any discussion on that motion? Any questions?
Does that need to include anything about the cameras you talked about, or would that be later?
Cameras are in the
They're in the
budget
budget.
already. We approved.
Okay, okay.
Okay, without any further question, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Jason and Carla?
Aye.
I said aye.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit out here, but we heard you now. Okay, any opposed? We have a unanimous motion, or unanimous vote. The motion passes. Good deal. I'm looking forward to seeing those out there. All right, let's go staff communication, starting with Austin.
Okay, I just have a couple things. On the trail signs that we were just talking about, we have the final draft of the actual signs that would go inside those structures. It's back here on the conference table. For those that are here tonight, you can take a look at that. Those that are online, you can come in and take a look at it at City Hall, but I think we're just about there on final version of those. So that's in the conference room. The other thing that I have for you tonight is the Montdella Senior Housing Townhomes. They are requesting that the city council approves a couple of design changes. So the first change is the brick that they originally were planning to use is no longer being manufactured. And so they've had to select a different brick, a new brick to replace that. And so they have 5 different color schemes. Those are also in the conference room here for you to review. The other thing that they're wanting to change on the design is so on each townhome unit, all of the windows, the doors, the archways, and parts of the chimneys had precast concrete, were made out of precast concrete. So the entire archway over the door would be made out of this precast concrete. They are now requesting that they be able to substitute that for a stucco material. It's kind of a foam-based material with a gray stucco on top of it that kind of simulates a concrete look.
Yeah, we seem to be departing a bit from the quality that we approved earlier, because that stuff breaks off after a few years. I've seen plenty of those.
And there's a sample of it.
There is a sample of that in the conference room as well, so you can look at it, see what you think, and just kind of let us know your direction that you'd like to go on both the brick and the material samples. So
Well, it lends to the question, why do they want to go with something so fragile?
he claims that
Yeah.
the builder says that
Sell
the
it up front.
concrete person who made those is out of business now, the precast company.
Hmm.
They've gone out of business, and so he tried to find another solution, and this is what he's found. So that's what, according to him. So again, the sample's back there. Let us know if you guys want to approve that. If not, we'll just assume that they have to continue to go with the precast concrete.
I mean, is there only one cast concrete guy in this side of the country?
Yeah, I don't know too much about that business. The brick to me didn't leave a question mark.
Yeah.
The other, I had a question mark.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah.
So.
I thought the brick looked good.
Yeah, brick does look good.
The other looks kind of like stucco and maybe fragile. I don't know what their options are.
I'm wondering if he can come back to us with another option. The challenge with precast concrete is over time, and this will be our main street, that also shifts and doesn't look good. It looks great at the beginning, but after a little while, it's not so great. So I'm wondering if, even if he used brick or another product, is there something besides stucco that he could substitute as the precast? Because I don't think that's a comparable substitute, but I understand the problem with precast.
I think it would be beneficial if I pull up some of the renderings of the building so you can kind of see what elements are being changed. Let's see here. Okay, so everything that you see in yellow is the
You need
precast
to
concrete.
switch your screen, Austin.
Oh, sorry. Let's try this again. Okay, are you able to see that, everybody online?
Jason, can you see that?
Yes, sorry, yes, I can see it online.
Okay, so what you see here in yellow, everything in yellow, the art over the garage doors, over the windows on the upper part, and then you see this big thing protruding out of the side of the buildings. That's the archway over the doorway. So if we go down here, you'll see this. They have this ornate concrete thing over each doorway, and so that's all precast. And then everything around the entire front entry, the doors and entryway is precast. And then there's a few parts here on the chimneys that are also that precast material. So they're wanting to do that stucco stuff there as a substitute. And then here, let me show you another colored rendering of the building so you can remember what they look like. Let's
Is
see.
there stucco? I'm trying to remember. I know we've got brick, got a mixture of materials. How much stucco is on the buildings now as proposed?
No stucco. Stucco's actually not allowed in the, it's not something that we typically would approve as part of our design guidelines for the Gateway Historic Zone.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that says it right
Yeah.
there. I mean, stucco is not a very durable material. And this is right on the face of Alpine. As you come in. So I think, we were cautious on this design approval for a reason. And I think we're being asked to compromise that now. Sorry, guys, I didn't have my mic on. Could you hear me?
We could hear you, yeah.
If not, you missed out on a lot. It was really good.
It was soft, but we could hear you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these are key elements of the architecture everywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can't have that.
They are, and the aesthetics, the look of it is just different.
Yeah, it's a significant compromise. And I, you know, I'm not an expert, but I would imagine that if you compared the price of the stucco compared to the cast, it's gonna be huge, and that's probably the primary motivator. And these are going for top dollars.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of, I guess you can sort of feel the direction then,
I
Austin.
kind of get a good idea of what the council's thinking on this, so yeah.
Does anybody who's online have a different point they'd like to make?
I've used those precast concrete things just like they have on some previous houses. And I've never had a problem over time. I thought they stood the test of time and I never had a problem with them shifting or looking poorly, but that's just my personal experience with them.
Good, thanks.
If you have a supplier, maybe we could give them a reference.
Well, concrete is in such high demand right now. It's one of those ration materials that we're working with now. And so I can understand why it would be hard to come up with.
Yeah, that's probably another reason behind it.
Okay, anything else, Austin?
That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie, do you have anything for us?
No.
Okay, Shane?
Yeah, okay. So the update on the flexible bollards, they arrived here yesterday. Our guys started installing them today.
Oh, great.
So the way we laid them out is so that, okay, imagine a square signpost. That's what the buried base that's 2 foot long looks like. It's the same, it's holes in it and everything. So you bury that and then this flexible bollard, they're 4-inch diameter. Then it has this hard rubber base that inserts into the square tube and then you screw that in. And so that would, the top of the square tube would be flush to the ground.
Okay.
And then the spring is right there just above the ground level. So I'm not sure how far along they got today. I believe there are six on the lower end, and I think there might be 6 on the upper. We spaced them so that, you know, if a fire truck went to go over them, they wouldn't run over the bollards themselves. They would, you know, we
straddle.
yeah. So the center ones are a little bit closer, and then they're spaced at like 4 foot center to center. So that makes them what 3'8" outside to outside. So hopefully they'll
Side by side, couldn't get through that.
shouldn't be able to, yeah. So, but we couldn't space them much different than that. And I mean, we went and measured one of our dump trucks just to figure out how we needed to space them. If we space them any different than that, we're
Then you're running. on
rubbing
top.
sides or running on top of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So within the next day or two, they should be in. Along with that, Jed sent me yesterday morning an update from Apple Maps and Google Maps that both show routing around Grove Drive.
Okay.
It'll remain to be seen if that's a 2-week thing or if it will. But we'll have the combination of both right now.
I saw it, you know, reverted the other day and fixed it, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it makes.
So this was yesterday morning that Jed sent me both of those. So
On the bollards,
mhm.
I would say, you know, going back to the cameras we talked about a little earlier,
Mhm.
that would probably be a top priority
Yeah,
for those
that's-
cameras.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, the pavilion that was approved, was it last city council?
Yeah.
It was. It's fabricated.
Oh, great.
It'll only take 1 day to sand it up. We just got to get our pillar footings in, but we moved on the bollards first.
Yeah.
I was actually up there where the pavilion, well, the general area. So if you remember, you go up there and there's the wood post. It's almost like a gateway going through from the Alpine city side of the boundary to the other. is everyone envisioning kind of right in front of that or offset north or south? I don't know, we might need a quick field
Maybe do
trip
a
up
field
there
trip?
to decide.
Good placement.
Yeah.
The easiest area is kind of right in front of those posts.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really think of a reason why that would be a problem.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels like it. That feels good.
Is it, maybe we fill in that fence at this point. I mean, because there's an opening in the fence, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we, at the same time, close that up and.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
the city constructed that fence, didn't it? Because I don't think the Forest Service did.
I don't think we did.
The Forest Service says that they didn't either.
I know they placed the rocks there,
Mhm.
but the fence, I know our public works guys didn't do it.
I haven't got there.
I'm not sure who would have done it, but we're hoping if we can get the concrete little pillar foundations done that in a couple of weeks, we could have the structure up.
Do we have an order in for the concrete already?
So for the pillar footings, we're probably just gonna use
The precast,
the little,
the tubes?
what do they call it? I just lost the name of the company. Hey, a little cart concrete
Oh, yeah.
for those. We wouldn't want to use that on the floor,
Okay,
but for these little foundations, I think it'd be fine.
okay.
So, but we've got to do some grading on that, but before we grade, we really need to pin down where we want that. So I don't know if Friday, if you have time to.
This Friday, I could go up. Do we have to, if a bunch of us go up though, do we have to notice that meeting and?
We could take a couple of council members,
Okay,
so. If
yeah,
any-
we could even
anyone's
do
game,
two
and I-
separate runs.
Right.
Just have
we
a
could do that.
morning run and a
Mhm.
later morning run.
So,
Yeah, let's do that. Carla,
Okay.
Jason and Jessica, are you interested in going up there?
I would love to go up, but I will be out of town on Friday.
Okay,
Actually, there's a chance I might be as well, but I'll let you know.
okay.
okay,
Jessica?
Same with me, but I'm gonna go up there tomorrow and just take a look. So I'll
Okay.
send you a couple of pictures.
Okay. I like the idea of blocking that entrance with
Yeah.
it.
Isn't it isn't that the most, it's a kind of a more level area right there too?
Yeah.
right in front it
Tops
is.
out.
Yeah.
And there's
I
some
mean,
rocks there, but we have to move those. But if we go too far south, then it's more grading and fill, and too
Mhm.
far north, you get into vegetation.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning toward that just because it is the most level, so that's gonna be less work to get something put there.
All right, just a reminder, the next Lone Peak board meeting is May 26th. The schedule's all, normally it'd
Yeah.
be tomorrow. The schedule's all messed up because of this provision that was put into the interlocal agreement. So we're gonna work on cleaning that up for this next year. Let's see. Just our other projects are going really well. 800 South, they'll be slipping curb on the south side of the road the end of the week. Our water line project is went way better than expected and quicker. All the main lines in on Hillside, they've got the other little section up on Meadowlark, and then put the services in and pave it, and it'll be done. And then just a reminder, if you see anybody, the mayor called me or texted me on this the other day. If you see anybody slacklining on trees, Cal told me that we have probably over a dozen trees that are dead.
yeah.
10-year-old trees in some cases in Creekside Park. And he feels like it's from slacklining.
I had Brian go over there the other night because there were kids slacklining on the trees. And I'm not sure how that discussion went, but I don't think it was Brian. I think he sent somebody, but yeah, we're losing some good trees and they took, how long has the park been there? 10 years?
10 or 11 or 12, something like that.
10 years to get them this big and now they're getting killed because
Yeah.
people don't really. And that I've heard the complaint when we tell them, hey, we've already put in some posts for these, they complain that they're not far enough apart. I don't know how true that is. I'm not a slackliner, so.
I'm not either. We build them to the standard that the slackliners gave us, so.
Oh, did you?
We did.
Yeah, I think maybe some education on that might be appropriate, maybe the news line, and then not that the teenagers are gonna read the news line, but maybe get some word out there and even post some signage in the park.
And if you hear that, ask them how far they're supposed to be apart. We'll put some more in.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years is a long time to grow a tree to have it die for
Yeah,
some
it really is.
reason like that.
And I think
So,
we've gone out of our way to accommodate them with the posts, but it's not recognized.
yeah, so that's all I have.
Okay. Carla, do you have anything?
I do not.
Jessica?
I was just talking to some residents that live up on Lakeview that don't have, I think it's Comcast Xfinity. Is that supposed to at some point go in up there, or are they finished in Alpine?
One of the provisions of the Emergency Care Act, or not, whatever they're calling it now, is
American
that
Rescue Plan.
we can establish better internet service.
Yeah, so we have a franchise agreement with Comcast, and there's a provision in there that says if service is available within so many feet, and it has these different provisions and things. I can't remember the details, but I remember going over with David Church, and he said there was some change in federal law that pretty much invalidates that requirement that's listed in our franchise agreement. So I don't know that we have the power to force Comcast to expand.
Okay.
It just seems very unlikely at this point, as you know, going way up.
Yeah.
That's frustrating for people.
Tell them to look into Skylink.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So that's-
honestly, that's what we had to do.
Is that the satellite driven internet?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Jess?
No, that's it.
Okay. Jason?
Nothing.
Okay. Lon? Greg?
Just on Jessica's point, I mean, potentially we could look at, you know, with these funds, you know, laying out some sort of light fiber infrastructure, you know, through the city, and then let residents take it from there. Because some of them are willing to, you know, go dig across your yard and for a few $100s, and you know, it keeps us out of, you know, doing, you know, huge bonds for the city to put in internet. And
yeah,
but that might be you know, in addition to water projects and other things, something to look at. But
well, and I have my own editorial view of the money that's being handed out to cities. I think it's a mistake, and we're all going into deep debt for it. But you know, I think Carlos made the point before, if we don't spend it, some other city will take the same money and run with it. If we do choose to move forward with that, I think that's a very valid way to go, because part of the whole COVID crisis in some areas has been the lack of internet to maintain online schooling and all those things that are needed now. So I could see that becoming the primary target for any money that we do accept, possibly.
I would fully support that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The general concept is that we have telephone poles throughout, you know, kind of the central part of the city where you could maybe run it on there, and that's how they've done it in the city mostly. And then from there, they'll put it into the neighborhood, but it's a lot easier, and you can go pretty far.
Rather
And
than
then,
trenching.
yeah, and then maybe it's, you know, generally they may want to see that, you know, a whole road signs up for a couple of years, but mostly people here, I think, would be delighted to get that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's an idea.
We did have Utah Broadband approach us and just say, hey, is there a possibility that we could, you know, somehow make use of some city water tanks or points of elevation to kind of expand service here. And Austin, do you remember, was that allowed by our ordinance?
Like on private property? Is that the one you're talking about?
Like if, say, Utah Broadband wanted to come in and put kind of a repeater on one of our water tanks or something like that. I can't remember.
I mean, it's It would be treated just the same as any other antenna, and so it would have to be at an approved location on one, so I don't think it would be an option as easy as it.
We could work to open that up a little bit
Yeah.
if the council wanted to.
It may be a good idea. That's kind of your point to point wireless stuff, right? So you're a little bit limited on modern speeds there. And it's not as reliable, but if that's your option, people are delighted to have it.
All I can say is no on Utah broadband.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even tell you no, absolutely no.
Pretty bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's good at times, except for when you need it.
It's like driving a Ferrari.
I think the owner actually lives here.
He does. He lives in Alpine, and around his area, he gets great service. All I've heard is ever since we moved in is they're going to upgrade our system so we can go faster. We're paying for a huge bandwidth amount, but we never seem to get the throughput. So no, fiber.
Well, hopefully your message is being heard, Carla.
I want direct links.
Yeah.
I do. It's the best. Then you don't have to worry about weather. You don't have to worry about obstructions.
That's
I
right.
got point to point, direct.
Okay,
That's all I had, Mayor. Thanks.
thank you. We got 3 more minutes. I have a quick laundry list to go through. Shane and I met and talked about our green waste situation and our overall solid waste, because as you guys know, we parted ways with the North Point facility. How many years has it been now? 4, 5?
Probably longer.
Has it been longer than that?
Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
I
Has
think
it been
Mount
8?
Clement was on the council.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay, so the result of that has been that we have lower tipping fees. So we've been able to keep our overall trash bills lower. But if you try to take a trip to the North Point waste facility, man, you have to pay a minimum, I think it's $23 or $22. And then, as I discovered on Saturday, an extra $5 for a mattress, and they just start layering it on. And that's pretty much unique to Alpine. I mean, I think most other communities in the area still have an agreement with them. And so we're a little bit of a handicap. I don't know how many people actually take a drive to the dump, periodically, but one of the things that Shane and I talked about today is a few ways that we could mitigate that, because we lost the green waste facility, which I think was a big loss to everybody. We don't have a place to dump our clippings, our prunings, and anything that we want to get rid of from the yard. And so we talked about possibly establishing a central location for several dumpsters twice a year, once for spring, once for fall, so that people would have a place to bring their tree limbs and other things too. The second level would be to provide a discounted rate to neighborhoods who wanted to put a dumpster in their neighborhood, on their cul-de-sac or whatever, for a period of time. We have a negotiated fee that ACE has offered, and we could, and this is a later discussion, of course, but we could look at subsidizing that fee so that neighbors would have, if they wanted to get together with a whole street, and it was a $50, $60, $75 rental rate for the week, and we contributed something toward that to help promote it, we could do that. One of the other things that we used to do, kind of stopped doing, was subsidizing dump passes. So every resident used to have one trip a year they could take to the dump, and they could bring their receipt to the city. We would reimburse, like we did for library memberships a while back. And so I'd like to take a look at that. I think we need to really focus on this as an issue, because it's literally going to start piling up. I mean, I think people are finding places to dump their stuff that they wouldn't normally do. And at the very least, it would be providing a convenience to our community if we could do those 3 things. Any thoughts on that? Does that sound like a good topic for another meeting, or?
Yeah, I'd love to have something.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I think they sound good.
Okay.
My
Let's,
concern would be, like, if you're talking about a dumpster are you talking about it for green waste? Like in the middle, a central location, or are you talking about any kind of waste?
Well, I think we had that part of that conversation because one of the big challenges to the green waste, Carla, is if you have a dumpster sitting out on the street overnight, you're gonna end up with some stuff in the morning. And so, you know, I think, I don't know, we'd have to look at the expense, but I think it would be nice to have something for the solid stuff too. But that's a discussion I think we should have.
Yeah, we found that out during our remodel here, that the dumpster got full relatively quick.
It's like people come out of the woodwork with stuff.
Dang, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Why do you think all the stake presidents and bishops have keys to their dumpster locations?
Right.
Okay, so that's really, I wanted to bring that up. And then the other thing Shane and I talked about is there are some red curbs that need to be repainted like right away so that we can, because the reason I called Brian is because I could see the people were parked illegally. They probably knew they were, but at first glance, it's hard to tell on some of those curbs that there are no parking zones. So we should get out there and aggressively hit Smooth Canyon, Healy Park, Burgess, and Timberline.
A Long Drive, Greg mentioned me, there's some neighbors over in that area that would be willing to, if we provided the paint stuff, to do some work. And I don't know if there's people maybe in some of those areas that could help out if we provided the equipment, materials. Be awesome if they would.
Well, and we might even get the soccer teams to volunteer to do that because they're the ones that are creating
the
traffic.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, it's 9 o'clock.
Yep, I'm ready to be done. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Look at that. I don't know when it turned 9:01, but it was close. We might have.
We just violated
I
no,
think that
we should
clock's a
cite
minute
ourselves. What was that?
I think that clock's a minute fast.
Good. No, actually, it's a minute slow.
All right, right.